is your left side and this is your right side. That's your windpipe right in the center. You see that hole?
Uh-huh.
This CAT scan was done with contrast. So the white
Right.
stuff is the aorta. That's the blood vessels. So that white stuff that you see is the blood vessels, and this is the mass right here. And
Wow, it
there's
looks
some lymph
big.
nodes. Yeah, it's about.
That whole big thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is just one slice. Now this slice is actually up here, but this mass is
Yeah.
actually from here all the way onto here. So it's like this much.
Wow.
Oh, it was like
Yeah, that's really big.
23 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger than
So-
that. Uh-huh.
So the question is, and this is in response to your question, what is it?
Uh-huh.
Looking at it is very, very highly suspicious for cancer. You can have a seat there, yeah.
Yeah. Face it better.
But nobody can tell you based on the pictures what it is definitively unless you actually get a tissue. You know, just like what they did with the liver, you need to have tissue. Now, is it possible that came from the liver? And sure, that's always the possibility, because if it was a malignancy there, that can actually spread into different parts, including your lung.
Yeah, I know they had an issue with keeping the,
Usually when it spreads into the
I
lungs
see.
though, you rarely get one area. Usually you get multiple areas. In other words, it wouldn't just be here, it would
Yeah.
be here, it would be, because when it spreads, it's different cells and it spreads almost like showering. So it's almost like a random spread. So it's likely that if it is tumor, it's a primary lung cancer, not related to the liver. But again, we can speculate all we want. We need to have tissue diagnosis. Now,
right.
is it possible that it may not be tumor and neoplastic? Sure, that's always the possibility. The likelihood of that is very, 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 very small. The reason being that I'm sure they did x-rays when you had the liver transplant, that was just last year. They would have seen something. The fact that nothing was there then and there's something there now tells me that it's something that's growing.
How treatable is this?
Well, in terms of lung cancer, and again, it's different for different type of
Yeah.
tumors. In terms of lung cancer, there's two major categories that we look at. There's multiple different types of tumors, but we separate them into two categories, and that is small cell and large and the non-small cell. The reason why is because non-small cell, we usually try to remove it if we can. In other words, if it's only there,
Yeah.
we try to take it out.
This
If
would be
everything
hard
else.
to get to, wouldn't it?
Well, we'll get to that. If it's small cell, then the treatment is chemo and radiation. Now, the way that we approach tumors is in three phases. First phase is tissue diagnosis, cell type, what type of tumor it is. Number two, how advanced it is. And number three is the treatment. So we won't discuss I'll give you a good idea in terms of what the treatment is unless we know the first two.
When can we find that out?
Well, we can schedule a biopsy next week.
Okay.
And we go in with the scope. So we'll put the scope right through your nostril, and we'll go down, and then we'll try to get with the scope itself. We'll put a needle across to get a good tissue.
All right.
Just
Is
in
that-
your observation, I mean, can you guesstimate? Do you think it's a removable type kind, or? I mean, I know I'm asking you to guess.
Well, looking at the location of where it is, most likely not.
Not removable.
Even if it was non-small cell. And the reason is that it's a central tumor. Right now, just if you look at where it is, this is the center part of your chest, which the tumor is probably invading part of the airway, the trachea,
Yeah.
and it's also right where the blood vessels are. So in order to remove it completely, you would have to have all the blood vessels removed as well, which it would not be feasible. So normally on something like this, just because of the location, probably regardless of what cell type, surgery is not going to be an option. Now, if it was a more peripheral tumor, then surgery would be much likely.
So we're
Biopsy
talking chemo.
Correct. If it is
is- Or
again.
radiation. And or
Usually we
radiation.
do both,
Yeah.
and depending on what it is.
What
So,
type of chemo is it?
There's different types, and again, that's based on the type of cancer it is.
I've just been familiar. My dad was on a type of chemo where it was just a couple pills he took every day.
That's some of the newer agents like Torsiva. Those are more like oral treatments. They're specific for certain type of tumors, and it's more indicated for people with advanced disease. Which in this case it might be, but again, we won't know a lot of that stuff until we get the diagnosis.
Now this said there was the girl when I talked to her. She said she had pulled records from another CAT scan. Did you compare it? Was it shown there at all?
Yeah, I can't figure out what that came from. I mostly got MRIs, and I think they're all in the abdominal area.
I believe she said it was October 2015.
You had a CAT scan in October 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and at that time they saw a nodule in the left lung, 5 millimeter nodule on the other side, which is still there now. That's nothing.
So there wasn't. So they definitely were looking at the lungs then, and there wasn't anything in it then.
Yeah, that was 2015. That was October 26, 2015.
Yeah.
So that's like 14 months ago. And you know the size of it now. What does that give you any indication?
Well, I mean, it's certainly whatever it is an aggressive, process, and I can tell you that just from even July when you had the transplant,
Uh-huh.
routinely they do X-rays. So they don't do routinely CAT scans. They do X-rays, at least of your chest. So if they didn't see anything there, then probably wasn't even there then.
So this has grown probably since like August.
Correct.
Wow.
Mm.
And is that good because we caught it early? Or?
Well, again, you know what? I know that you're trying to look for positive things, and I usually try to say, well, I mean, the only thing that I can tell you is that you got to be positive, I said, regardless of what it is or what stage or whatever, because the prognosis depends on the way that your body responds to the treatment, and obviously staging has a lot to do with it. So, I usually don't. Many years ago, I used to tell people, okay, you have 3 to 6 months or 9 months or whatever, because that's what the books tell you. But in reality, I've done this long enough that was always wrong. Everybody's different, and now the medications are much better. Like some of the newer agents are much better, and people live longer with the newer agents. Matter of fact, nowadays we actually prefer on some of the advanced diseases some of the oral therapy because they tend to live longer than regular chemo.
And then what about? Are we looking at a lung transplant at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
And what kind of symptoms could I be looking at?
For what?
The tumor. I don't have any symptoms
Well,
that I can identify
I mean,
right now. What can I?
This was found by accident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So usually when lung cancer gives you symptoms, the tumor is very advanced.
Yeah.
Mm.
So right now the only stuff that I see is that it's here and it's involved in some of the lymph nodes in the center part of your chest, which by definition it's already at least a stage 3 disease, if it is cancer and these lymph nodes are involved.
Huh.
So out of 4 stages is stage 3. Now, I've seen people with stage 3 disease live 12, 15 years. So that's
That'd be
not
enough. If I could get healthy,
We'll take
that would be
15
enough.
healthy years.
I'd take 10
actually,
if
and
they
they
were
died
healthy.
actually not because of the tumor. They actually died because they had a heart attack. So it wasn't that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that if you actually read the books, and if I told these, people, this is how long you have, I would have been wrong.
Yeah, a lot of stuff just happened since that transplant. I'm really having trouble getting reconditioned and on my feet. And
So bronchoscopy, basically you're sedated and you're going to be under general anesthesia because we're going to try to do an EBUS. And EBUS meaning that we're going to put an ultrasound machine in the scope itself to tell us exactly where the tumor is, so that way we can put a needle across. And that way we can get a much better
is
biopsy.
it an overnight or same day?
Same day,
And where is it?
across the street.
And how long does it take to get results?
We will know right then and there if we got enough tissue. So depending the location of where this is, it's not going to be an easy biopsy because it's right on the side. So I'm going to have to kind of twist the scope to try to go up, almost up, and that's very difficult with a needle that's straight.
Nothing's ever easier.
So,
Yeah.
but you know, I should be able to get it. But again, it's not going to be an easy biopsy. We have usually the cytopathologist there. So when I do a biopsy, I'll give them the sample. They'll take a quick look and see if I had enough tissue. So we should know right then and there that it is tumor.
If it's cancer or not.
Correct.
Okay.
We won't know what type it is because that needs to be stained more, and that's a longer process.
And then how long is that?
That may take about 2 or 3 days, depending on, you know.
And then treatment would start right after that? Okay.
Well, then you're going to need to see an oncologist and a radiation oncologist and stuff like that. So usually we'll get the biopsies first, make sure that